In its deadliest day since the start of the illegal invasion of Ukraine, the Kremlin was hit with a record 1,770 Russian casualties reported by Kyiv. This figure surpasses the previous high of 1,740 on May 13th and marks a devastating escalation in the brutal war. Today, we're diving into the intense clash on the Russian front lines, where Ukrainian forces are holding their ground with fierce determination. In a powerful video from Ukraine's 95th Air Assault Brigade, we witness what happens when a heavily armored Russian assault faces unyielding resistance right outside the small village of Pogrebki in Kursk. As the Russian forces push forward, they seem determined to overwhelm Ukrainian defenses. But what happens next is an incredible show of Ukrainian tactics and resilience. Russian vehicles equipped to bulldoze through are met with relentless fire from anti-tank missiles and drones, stopping the advance in its tracks. One by one, we see Russian armored vehicles disabled and burning. And here's the devastating twist. Once Russian soldiers are forced to dismount and flee from their crippled vehicles, Ukrainian drones move in for the final blow. This footage highlights how these drones are not just eyes in the sky, they're a game changer on the battlefield. Russia is gathering an enormous counteroffensive to take back control. Over 10,000 soldiers, and remarkably, among them are reported to be North Korean troops. This formidable force is pulling soldiers from eastern Ukraine and redirecting them to Kursk, a sign that the Kremlin is committed to turning the tide in this critical area. The battle for Kursk is shaping up to be a massive confrontation, with each side pouring everything they have into this strategic location. The next phase of this conflict will test not only military strength, but the resilience and tactics of both Ukrainian and Russian forces. This footage shows a series of Russian mechanized attacks in the Kursk region, and guess what? They're still attacking in columns, just like they did in 2022. It looks like they had no warning about the change in tactics. They're coming in droves along the same roads, and Ukrainian forces are just waiting to attack. Boom! Armored cans are burning, and Ukrainian drones and mortars are chasing those trying to escape into the countryside. Units from several other brigades of the Ukrainian armed forces are also taking part in this action, making this a true team effort. Russian forces have attempted 5 waves of mechanized attacks in this area, but the results aren't good for them. This fierce battle took place near the village of Zelenishia in the Kursk region. Ukrainian forces inflicted serious damage on enemy equipment, thanks to some advanced FPV drones and artillery strikes. Along with good old-fashioned handheld anti-tank grenade launchers, they were used at very close range, proving that sometimes you just have to get in close and face the Russian convoy head-on. Ukraine's 33rd Brigade put up a stunning defense against Russian armored columns on the Donetsk front. Near the town of Kurakhove, brave soldiers of the 33rd OMBR held their ground and repelled the invaders. And guess what? The legendary Leopard 2 tanks joined the fight, adding devastating firepower. This action-packed video shows their combat prowess. Russian troops thought they could launch a massive assault on Ukrainian positions in Kurakhove, deploying an armada of armored vehicles and main battle tanks, but things didn't go as planned. And lo and behold, the Ukrainian defenders were waiting. They greeted the enemy with a symphony of artillery strikes and drones raining ammunition on the attackers. What a warm welcome! And just when the Russians thought they had their chance, Ukrainian Leopard 2 tanks swooped in, firing at the enemy tanks at point-blank range. Their fierce resistance resulted in the destruction of more than 24 invaders, with about 20 more wounded. Not to mention, they disabled 2 tanks and 6 armored fighting vehicles. Despite the heavy losses, the Russian troops did not give up. They stepped up their attack, determined to capture Kurakhove. Every day, mechanized attacks with tanks and armored vehicles continue to come. The city remains under the control of the Ukrainian armed forces, and they will not go anywhere without a fight. Now, this is where things get interesting. Ukraine's 95th Separate Assault Brigade is going head-to-head with the Russian Federation's 810th Marine Brigade in Kursk, China. It's like a real-life game of tug-of-war, but with much higher stakes. So picture this. A Russian armored convoy enters the Kursk region, ready to storm Ukrainian positions, but things don't go according to plan. the Russian army launches another mechanized assault on Kursk, hoping to overwhelm the Ukrainian defenders. However, they seriously underestimated the situation. This epic video of the failure was shared by a Telegram channel showing the chaos that ensued. The attackers? None other than the Russian Navy's 810th Separate Marine Brigade. And trust us, things didn't go well for them. During this intense battle, Russian armored vehicles were destroyed or damaged, mostly BTR-82S, along with off-road vehicles. What a tough day. Most of their equipment was destroyed by dense anti-tank minefields. The area was under the control of the Ukrainian 95th Separate Amphibious Assault Brigade, which was more than ready to defend its territory. In short, the attempt by the armored convoy to storm the Ukrainian positions at Kursk was a spectacular failure, with heavy losses for the Russians. Recently, in the clear skies above the territory of the 46th Separate Airmobile Brigade, an enemy armored convoy was spotted, with a total of 12 Russian armored units making a massive assault. Footage shows 3 infantry groups deciding to spice things up by attempting to cross the river. Their plan? To confuse and spread out the Ukrainian forces' defenses. Little did they know, however, that the paratroopers of the 46th Brigade are masters of coordination and teamwork. With pinpoint precision from drones, the Ukrainian forces' artillery and drone systems went to work. The result? The spectacular transformation of the armored vehicles, 3 tanks and 6 BMPs, into nothing more than scrap metal. And let's not forget the Russian crew, who were targeted by drone grenades and mortar fire, leaving their positions completely destroyed. Ultimately, the 46th Brigade showed that when it comes to defending their territory, they don't just play around, they turn it on its head. Now, a drone flying high above the battlefield has captured footage of a column of Russian armored vehicles driving along the road. The convoy includes infantry fighting vehicles, Typhoon armored cars. These vehicles serve as mobile support points for Russian assault units. But as the vehicles get closer to Ukrainian positions, the drone operators are ready to attack. The first drone swoops down silently. Boom! An explosion occurs, and the armored vehicle bursts into flames, then comes to a screeching halt. Russian soldiers scramble to escape from the wreckage, but guess what? More drones have locked onto them. Next, a direct hit to the side sends a shockwave through the vehicle, freezing it in place.